We're all back. Good afternoon. Welcome to the sixth and final session of this year's Carers Knowledge Exchange Research Incubator event. My name is Hugh Bainbridge and I'll be facilitating today's session on where to next for the Carer Knowledge Exchange. Just as a little bit of background, I'm an Associate Professor at the School of Management and Governance at the University of New South Wales, where my research work centres around the carers' experience of combining work and care, how that means movement in and out of jobs while caring, and also in and out of the workforce more generally. I've also had the privilege of serving on the research advisory group of the Carers Knowledge Exchange. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm joining from today, the Bedegal people, and all the lands represented by attendees participating this afternoon. Also, I'd like to extend my respect to elders past and present, and to all First Nations people, including any joining us today. So far this week, we've heard from a number of different panelists and presenters about different initiatives that highlight the theme of sustainability and caring. Today's theme is about sustainable carer policy environment, and before the break, Elena led a consultation to inform a whole range of developing areas in carer policy. This session, though, will round out the week's theme by focusing on the project behind the Research Incubator event, the Carer Knowledge Exchange. Some of you will have been involved in the Carer Knowledge Exchange events and activities before, and others may be joining us for the first time this week. This afternoon, we're going to hear from just a few of the many contributors to this project over the past 3 years to get their reflections on what the Exchange has achieved and how it has informed and continues to inform their practice. So building on this theme, this morning's panel discussion will focus on the sustainable carer support for carers from culturally and linguistically diverse First Nation communities, and I'd like to welcome our panelists for today's session. Elena Katrakis is the CEO of Carers New South Wales, who leads the Carer Knowledge Exchange project in partnership with the Institute for Public Policy and Governance at UTS. And Elena has been closely involved in the development of the project since the very beginning, and will have many insights to share, I'm sure, about from the Carers New South Wales perspective. Professor Emma Kirby is, like myself, a member of the Carer Knowledge Exchange Research Advisory Group, a group of 12 academic not-for-profit researchers from a range of disciplines and institutions which has been advising on the development and the delivery of the Carer Knowledge Exchange since August 2021. She's a professor of sociology in the School of Social Sciences at UNSW and an associate dean, societal impact, equity, and engagement for the Faculty of Arts, Design and Architecture. Alex Lee joined the Carer Knowledge Exchange Carer Advisory Group in 2023 and has been an active member contributing to a range of events, including chairing our last interactive webinar in February. Alex is a Carers New South Wales carer representative and a family carer peer worker at the South Eastern Sydney Local Health District. Finally, Maureen Flynn was one of the founding members of the Carer Advisory Group, which was also established in August 2021 and has closely informed the development and delivery of the Carer Knowledge Exchange. Maureen has provided extensive advice and input on the direction of the project and digital platform, drawing on her experience caring for 2 family members on the NDIS and her experience working in the care, policy and information sectors. So welcome all. Elena, I'm going to start with you and put you in the hot seat and I guess ask you a little bit of background. Can you tell us a little bit about how the Carer Knowledge Exchange first came about and what its primary goal was?
Thanks, Hugh. It's great to have everybody here as part of this final session today. Look, the Carer Knowledge Exchange really, it was a bit of a kind of idea that we'd had sort of bubbling away for a while. And it was really inspired by some of the work that was happening in the UK in sort of around 2017 and some of the work of Mary Larkin. We thought, there really wasn't anything that was similar in Australia. And so we started exploring opportunities to really enhance and centralise our own engagement with researchers. We were doing, quite a bit of work, but looking at a way to bring all of that together, and trying to then think about how we could improve access to carer-related research and publications, so that there was something all in one spot. So in 2021, we started working with the Institute for Public Policy and Governance at UTS on a joint project proposal for the Carer Knowledge Exchange. So it was really based initially around that online research library focused on, carers, complemented by regular interactive events like the incubator and the webinars that we've done over the last few years, and also then that growing stakeholder network. So the primary goal really of the Carer Knowledge Exchange is really what's in its tagline, which is that, connecting research to practice. So you can often have research and it sits there, which is great. No judgment, not saying, but sometimes it sits there, but it is then about, that let's bring that into practice and how is that research going to really make a difference for carers? So across a range of activities, the Carer Knowledge Exchange really aims to bring together researchers, policymakers, practitioners, and carers all together to share that knowledge and learn from each other, with the ultimate aim of improving, outcomes for carers in New South Wales and nationally, and hopefully even internationally. So that's kind of where it started.
Thanks, Elena. Yeah, look, I think that historical aspect of where it came from is really interesting, but also the knowledge exchange in itself is unique, and I think it's taken some big steps forward from what has been done in the past. Emma, can I just move to you and just get that again, the sense of how you first engaged with the exchange, and what was your main motivation for getting involved?
Sure, thanks, Hugh. Hi, everyone. I was invited to be on the research advisory group, and it was certainly an opportunity that I really jumped at in many ways because of exactly what Elena just said. As researchers, we often operate in kind of silos. A lot of my work with carers is on particular health issues, so informal carers, in the context of advanced illness, for example, or palliative and end-of-life care, or looking at former carers' experiences. And within my research, there are sometimes big kind of walls up between the research that I do, looking at carers and working with carers, and other areas of carer research. So to start with, it was just a fantastic opportunity to know that everybody was going to be in the same room and trying to get on the same page in terms of that. But also, I guess, in terms of challenging ourselves, I think, as researchers who focus on carers and are trying to improve the experiences of carers, what was great that really quickly emerged for me was how we could have these really robust discussions amongst ourselves with, well, what are we doing here and what are we trying to do and how are we going about that? So it was a great kind of room to be in, to really not only be on the same page, exchange ideas, exchange knowledge between researchers, but also as a group think about how we can be moving forward in the research space.
Yeah, thanks, Emma. Look, certainly attractive for me too, because often the big piece of the puzzle of doing research is what next once you complete a study, and having some sort of forum to have a proper exchange and have those conversations is really, really important. Maureen, if I can just move to you, again, sort of starting at the start, you shared your vision for a project at the very first research incubator. Can you tell us a little bit about how that project has evolved from your perspective since then and what it's achieved?
Sure. So I guess in preparation for today's session, I went back and looked at the early email discussions that were had around this project. And one of the things that really struck me is actually that this project has been really clear about the ideas and what we're trying to achieve from the beginning. So there was always talk from the very earliest point of discussion about the research database element, education element, collaboration opportunities element. But I guess what's really changed over time has been solidifying what we mean by that and putting it into a practice that has actual value across multiple different groups of people. So for researchers, for carers, and for policy groups and providers that might be working with different researchers and carers. And so some of the ways that I've seen that happen over time is even just around the concept of masterclasses, incubators, and webinars. There's been a lot of thought and focus around how we can move from simply, I guess, having a presentation to involving everyone co-creating together with this project, including people that are involved on the other end of the Zoom calls or research masterclasses to actually contribute further how the project develops. So for example, some of the themes that came out in early webinars talked about issues for carers that were then picked up for later webinars. And the other thing that I think is an unexpected achievement that came out of this project as well is around this project has brought up issues that carers have brought up, researchers have brought up, different participants in the webinars and masterclasses have brought up that then Carers New South Wales has been able to use in further research project opportunities and submission, even journal article opportunities that wouldn't have been there if this project hadn't existed. And I guess in terms of what I'm really proud of in relation to this project, I think a lot of research related projects, policy related projects talk about co-creation, but it doesn't really translate into something meaningful. Whereas there's really been a lot of opportunities for co-creation throughout the whole time of working on this project. So one of the things that I think is really useful and has been added to the Carer Exchange website is the Carer Hub area, which includes podcasts from a carer in residence and blog posts relating to sort of research tips for working for carers, which are really practical recommendations that researchers can utilize to move forward with how they work with carers. And even some of the strategies that have been used in the breakout sessions whereby Carers New South Wales and other stakeholders have worked to capture what's being discussed in sessions has really been about building a community that's going to have ongoing benefits even when this project ends. And I think that's what I'm most proud of in relation to this project.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Certainly, when I think back to the start of the project myself, one of the things that I was doing was to present, and it's a very one-way form of communication, and maybe you get a couple of comments and things. But certainly, as the exchange has evolved, there's been lots of opportunities for, like I say, the podcast from carers to come back and inform the actions of researchers, but also to create a dialogue, a little bit like today, where there's a bit of a conversation back and forth, and there's breakout groups and all sorts of things for really that interchange to occur productively. I should note as well, while the panel is sharing their thoughts, would love to hear any comments, observations, thoughts in the chat. We'll try to grab them as they come in, but also there'll be a little bit of time at the end of the panel where we could draw on any comments that are made and maybe discuss them a little bit further with the panel. So please feel free to do so. Alex, to come to you, you joined the advisor group, the Carer Advisory Group, more recently. Can you tell us or share a little bit about what first attracted you to the project and why you thought you might get involved?
Yeah, thanks you, and thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I think to start off with, I would say that one of my passions is actually in research. I had a research background previously, albeit not in a mental health or care-related field, in marketing actually. It's quite interesting, but haven't been doing, for whatever reason, I have been out of that for some time, but working in industry instead. But all throughout that time, my interest and my passion for research, evaluation, and what it means towards building an evidence base is still there. And my lived experience as a family carer for specifically in the mental health field has brought me to a place where I really value the contribution of lived experience of carers. So I guess those two areas, my interest in research and my interest in lived experience, kind of came together. So when I found out about the opportunity to be involved with the Carer Knowledge Exchange, that it's basically carers and researchers coming together to expand, to find ways to, like Maureen was saying, co-design, co-create research that builds on the evidence base, I was more than happy to get involved. And I guess another thing that I'm interested in is upskilling both myself and carers like myself on participating and getting interested in doing research and the value of it. Because I think for a lot of people, it can feel very distant, very dry, but ultimately it is important. And I think a lot of it comes down to just people needing that, being upskilled to understand more about the research process. So I found this to be an invaluable forum in bringing those things together. So that was, that's the reason why I was interested, and very happy to be remaining in this space.
Yeah. Certainly, I think the upskilling thing is an important one from the researcher side to get a little bit of dialogue to understand how better to do research to get the most out of that engagement, and also for carers perhaps a little bit of knowledge sharing about demystifying the process of what does research look like and what expectations should you have of participating in research. And some of that can be around remuneration, but also in terms of time and what sort of an appropriate way to go about it, and how can I best share my experience. So something perhaps that we're starting to look a little bit more about is to give a little bit of guidance to both groups about what can be expected in that exchange to make it most productive. Elena, from coming back to you from a Carers New South Wales perspective, what have been some of the main learnings from developing and delivering this project to the Carer Knowledge Exchange? And how's this project influenced Carers New South Wales itself?
Yeah, look, I think everyone's sort of touched on these elements a little bit in some of their other responses, but I think through the Carer Knowledge Exchange, we've obviously been able to build and expand our relationships with researchers from a range of different research institutions and networks, and really explore those opportunities for new research and collaboration and all the things that we've talked about, which has been fantastic because I think it's really enriched our work and our policy work and everything else, but also the work that we do with a whole broader range of stakeholders outside of the Carer Knowledge Exchange. I think it's allowed us to experiment with new forms of engagement. So the different interactive events that we've done over the last few years, different formats, some of the things that we've talked about today. And also, I suppose, some of the things that we, had to do during the COVID lockdown periods as well, where we really learned from, experimenting with some of those different approaches to online engagement, what worked, what didn't, and I think we've seen that through the webinars, how we've kind of grown and, changed up the format a little bit to make them more relevant to people in that engagement process. So I think part of also the achievement has been really from hearing that, hearing the different issues and things and challenges and input from a broad audience. So, what we always say, researchers, policymakers, practitioners and carers. So that's informed our own policy work, all of those submissions and things that, we participate in and submit responses to, and some of the things I talked about in the session before this one. So all of those inquiries and reviews, all of this work helps our advocacy and our systemic advocacy, which is fantastic. And then probably just a number of sort of specific projects and collaborative partnerships have also come out of the Carer Knowledge Exchange in our work. So that includes, some of the ongoing work around building researchers' awareness and skills with engaging ethically with carers. So the masterclass things that we've done, a project looking at the common preventative health issues experienced by carers, and a recently published overview of major Australian data sets relating to carers, which has been, really useful for, for us, for departments, for everybody, just to kind of see that spread. And that's been possible through the work that we've collated through the Carer Knowledge Exchange. So that's kind of, but I think everybody's touched on that, and it is, you know, absolutely a collaborative partnership, you know, project that I think is really fruitful for everybody.
I do want to reinforce that collaborative bit that you spoke to, and I do think that that shared aspect of the exchange is a real strength. I think a lot of times you have initiatives like this which are built on one person's energy and enthusiasm, and that doesn't necessarily come back to the theme of today, doesn't necessarily have sustainability, whereas when it's a shared exercise and it doesn't just rest on one person presenting every single event. I think the exchange has really benefited from having a lot of different perspectives. People come at caring from lots of different angles, and certainly I think that's made for a more vibrant exchange across the years that it has been running. So hopefully it will continue in that vein as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emma, as a researcher, I wondered about what you've learnt from your engagement with the exchange, and anything from that, how that has impacted your work.
So many different ways and so many different areas. I have personally learned a great deal from just being able to explore the different research that you see on there. I mean, in the field of kind of academic research on care and caring, we have one journal, the International Journal of Care and Caring, but beyond that, the literature is all over the place. And so to have one place that you can explore and different methods, different aspects of policy, international comparative studies is super useful, because it's a obvious first stop when you're looking for available research and what other people are doing in kind of spaces that you might be thinking about. It's also just a great hub, and it is a true knowledge exchange. So I'm constantly meeting carers, talking to other stakeholders that want to see the research. And it's very difficult to send them anywhere prior to the knowledge exchange, because journals are paywalled and journal articles are incredibly difficult to navigate. We write in horribly dry and wordy and inaccessible ways. And what the knowledge exchange does beautifully is give access to that research, but also give the kind of bite-sized findings in language that is accessible, that does actually get to the kind of point of what we're trying to do as researchers. So it's such a great place to be able to automatically send people. If I'm talking to participants, for example, for interview studies or for particular research projects, they'll often say, when can we hear about the research outcomes? When can we hear about the findings? And that's when I kind of get all uncomfortable and think, well, in about 2 years, because it takes a really long time. And you feel like there's a bit of a void in terms of the availability of kind of research right now to show to people. So this is a really great place to be able to send people. And the fact that it's complemented with the podcast, with the other kind of activities, with the webinars, means that it's something that people can really kind of meaningfully, genuinely engage with, regardless of what their learning style is or what particular aspects of caring that they're interested in. So for me, it's been useful in so many different ways.
Thanks, Emma. Just reflecting on a comment that was in the chat about how the exchange has been helpful just from that sort of scoping exercise of trying to work out what information is out there. And I think caring has particular challenges, as you highlighted, for reasons that I'm not aware of. There isn't a historically well-developed field of caring or study of caring in the same way that there are in other fields of academic inquiry. So having the International Journal of Care and Caring and having these hubs is really important to try to bring information together, and also to generate a community of knowledge exchange in that space. So some of those things that you highlighted make it even more difficult around paywalls and those sorts of things. So again, having an ability to share and get feedback on the great work which is being done is really key. I was going to turn to Maureen, if I can. What do you think yourself have been the main contributions that the members of the Carer Advisory Group have brought to the project?
Sure. So I think one of the most obvious components that the Carer Advisory Group has brought is bridging that gap between researchers and I guess service providers, policymakers to carers, and trying to make sure that we as carers are not just the subject of that research, but we are partners in that research. And so the Carer Advisory Group's focus has been around trying to think, how can we make sure researchers understand the carer perspective, but also how can we help other carers to see what the benefits of research might be when that research is ethically done. And so that's co-creation element where carers are proper real partners has been really important. But I also think the importance of an actual group of carers can't be understated, in that carers aren't just a homogenous group. We're not all the same. So even just on this Zoom call, obviously, Alex and I are not the same. Alex has experience with caring for someone with mental health needs. My caring experience relates to NDIS, but also demographically, we're different. Obviously, we're different ages, different genders, and different cultural backgrounds. And we know from the research that these elements impact differently on different carers. And so I think acknowledging that diversity within the Carer Advisory Group has helped the project to see where certain themes might need more teasing out, for example, in relation to multicultural based needs and the health system was one of them. Or, for example, my background in information studies, so now I'm a librarian at Sutherland Shire Libraries, helped me to think about how we could make sure that the actual Carer Knowledge Exchange website was usable for carers, including a how-to guide type video. So acknowledging that within the Carer Advisory Group, there are diverse experiences of being carers and diverse skill sets, I think has also been a benefit of the group and the project. And I just think as well, the other thing that we've tried to consider within the Carer Advisory Group is the personal story behind the data. So it's all very well and good to say 63% of people think this, but we all know that the community in general and the government and society responds better to storytelling. And so it's about how can we ethically bring carer stories to be part of carer research in a way that will make sure that there are positive outcomes for carers in policy. And I think that's something that Carer Advisory Group has really tried to think about. How can we encourage carers to tell their stories, and how can we bridge carers so that they can find the researchers that are doing great work that are part of the knowledge exchange.
Yep. Thank you very much, Maureen. Certainly there's been sort of other fields of study. Think about the research which is done in the area of disability studies, for example, where there's some very strong norms about how research is conducted. But I think those are still evolving in the space of caring. And so having some input around the Care Advisory Group in that space and thinking about the diversity of carers and how that shapes these sorts of interactions is really important. Alex, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about what you think the Carer Knowledge Exchange has enabled carers, researchers and policymakers, plus practitioners to work together, all those groups, and what differences do you see this making in the future? I think I lost your audio. Alex, if you can just unmute yourself.
Unmute, there we go. Yep, got it. Yes, I absolutely do think that practitioners and researchers and carers work together very well in this group that I've seen. And I'm not just saying this because you guys are here. But it's what you and Emma were saying earlier about the collaborative nature of this entire project. Ever since I came in, it's been evident to me that the culture of how this project's being run is that collaborative co-design spirit that's being shown. And I think that has been, like Maureen was saying, absolutely invaluable, not just to the research output, but to the sustainable development of the project moving forward. Because I guess like I said, having previously worked in a research space, there is that kind of pressure to just use view carers as subjects in research, get their data, and then get out of there. But whilst that may be a time efficient thing to do, but in terms of something that can sustainably produce quality research and policy outcome, which is what Elena was alluding to before, yeah, that's the kind of culture and environment that's needed to produce that kind of outcome. And I guess in terms of what next or what I see in the future, I see the value of this project as reducing that power and knowledge imbalance between researchers and carers, especially in the sense that by getting carers who may only have minimal research background to be interested in research process and outcome, it's going to generate, I do believe that it will generate that interest and that impetus to participate and pay attention to the value of research in policy, because I think that a lot of times collecting data can be, finding participants, collecting data, getting genuine engagement can be difficult to do. So if more people, more carers see the value of research through collaborative projects like this, it can only be a good outcome towards building that policy platform, building that evidence base. So I see that collaborative culture as being such a key thing, key aspect moving forward.
Yeah, I think the collaboration is really important for lots of reasons. I think researchers, are gradually moving away from that maybe smash and grab mentality of obtaining the data and then quickly doing something with it, but not having that long-term engagement with the groups that they're doing research with. And that's starting to move, I think, helpfully towards recognizing that's not where the best research is. That's not where the most valuable engagement is. So thinking a little bit more long-term and building those relationships so that you can see how carers' experiences evolve over time. And certainly the National Carers Survey has moved towards that, of building in a longitudinal component, but also interview-based research where we might want to come back and see how things have evolved 6 months, a year later. Think about big life changes that are part and parcel of caring, and what are the impacts of that before and after is perhaps where the greatest insights come from. So go ahead, Emma.
And just also add that that's also how the best research happens. You know, when researchers work with peak bodies, with policy workers, with staff on the ground, with carers, and we hear carer voices in real time, that's where the ideas and the best ideas are uncovered for research. That's where we see where the gaps are in research and where we need to kind of pursue new projects. So for me, it's as much about finding ethical and good ways to recognise carers and empower carers as participants, but also to acknowledge the role of carers in coming up with what those projects are in the first place, because that's how we find out what the best research is. Yeah,
absolutely agree. I was mentioned before too about how the generating stories are the ones that you can have that impact. The other little thing that I want to touch on was what Alex commented on around those research exchange groups. And I think certainly it's a reflection for me that a lot of research websites are very sort of homogeneous experiences. So academics go to the website, or that there are policy forums where policymakers go to that place. But again, the exchanges are very rare animal in a sense, where it brings together people that do span the carer, researcher, the policymaker, and the practitioner, and creates sort of a safe space for a productive exchange. If I can just throw it open to the panel as a group, for you to just jump in as you feel comfortable doing so. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about the opportunities that you see coming out of the 3 years of the Care and Knowledge Exchange events, resources and engagement. Any thoughts or reflections on that?
I was just thinking, I think actually one of the biggest opportunities that this project has provided is to really challenge different community groups to think about how they approach research and how they approach working with community. And I guess from my previous policy background, I'm a bit obsessed with community inclusion and sort of community grassroots work. And I think this project has really tried to continuously build in elements of moving forward based off what the community has given feedback on. In this case, the community is researchers and carers, and trying to really think about what is it that we can do to produce better quality carer-related research now and in the future, and challenging preconceived notions about what research has to look like or what carer participation has to look like. And I'm not just talking about challenging researchers, I think also challenging carers to think about what research might mean to them, so maybe trying to remove some of that fear factor of, oh, I'm not smart enough to be involved, or I'm not educated enough, or I don't have anything of value to provide to a researcher. And also giving them the skills to advocate for themselves, to have a voice and say, this research doesn't feel right. Here's some resources that I could direct you to help you be better at this. I think that's a really big opportunity that's come out of this project.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because sometimes the typical way that we sort of handle perhaps situations where you don't feel comfortable or you think the research is going off the rails a little bit is that we ask you to contact a university representative in the ethics group. That may also feel like a bit of a hurdle to jump. So to think about how we can sort of empower carers, I think that's a really good conversation that the exchanges helped to prompt. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I would only add, or just reiterate what I've said previously, which is I think about it's that broad, meaningful engagement with all of the different stakeholders, and just, reflecting on everything that everybody has said from a, different perspective, but very much the common theme around that collaborative approach about having that, easily accessible information that's accessible to everybody, that does translate, that research into practice, into, like Emma said, the bite-sized chunks or, webinars that are interactive. So I think it's kind of everything coming together. And I think that's what the aim was. So I think it has met its aim. It's obviously still got more to do and much more research and information, but I think that it's that collaborative, work and that meaningful engagement is really what I think is, at the core of the Carer Knowledge Exchange for everyone that's participating in it.
For me, what's really exciting, I guess, is the kind of diversity in forms of knowledge that we've kind of all encouraged each other to pursue, whether that be through kind of more creative methodologies and ways of engaging, but then also thinking about our kind of research outputs and how they can be better tailored to meet the needs of the participant groups and the communities that we're engaging with. The podcast is a perfect example of that, because it means that carers can listen to something potentially while they're doing something else. Carers are a group universally that are time poor and do not really have time to sit down and read a journal article. None of us do, but having things like podcasts, thinking about audio, thinking about different ways of producing knowledge and different ways of engaging with communities is also something that's really exciting.
There's a comment. Sorry, Alex, go ahead.
I'll just super quick mention that I feel that having that direct carer's voice into this project has enabled a direct carer's voice into policy input through the work of the researchers. And I feel that the biggest opportunity to come is that voice feeds into the ongoing work that's being done in terms of care recognition legislations and policy, but also in terms of human rights as well, because even just from the session we just gone through, we hear a lot about what carers need. They need recognition, they need understanding from policymakers that they need to be accommodated in terms of work, income, support, etc. And a lot of that feeds into a human rights dimension. I believe that the Federal Parliament just put out a report today about an inquiry about the human rights legislative framework. So this I feel that the biggest opportunity this forum has provided is to really embed that carer's voice into care recognition, as well as a broader rights approach to recognizing carers.
Thanks, Alex. Elena, I want to close by just asking you to share a little bit about the evaluation of the Exchange project that's ongoing and how people who are part of the session today in the audience can provide their feedback.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Hugh. So we've contracted an external consultant to review the data collected over the course of the project to date and collect some additional feedback from different groups of people who've participated in, the exchanges, events and activities. So we're trying to gather as much as we can as part of that. Findings from the initial analysis indicate that the project's been successful in reaching its broad intended audience of researchers, policymakers, practitioners, carers, and that new connections have certainly been formed for these groups, which we've talked about this afternoon and over the course of 3 days. We've also had a highly engaged audience in our events, so that's been indicated through the feedback. And they've indicated that the guest speakers, panelists and interactive discussions have prompted people to reflect and adjust their practice in line with the evidence base. So I think, that's really good. That's engaged, that discussion, that conversation has, extended out to people's workplace and environment and, work practices and things like that. And our growing collection of recent, Australian-related, care-related research in the Exchanges library has also provided a centralised, accessible platform, which we've also talked about today. So the next phase of the evaluation will seek further feedback from participants, starting with a project-wide survey for which the link will be shared in the chat. If you've been involved in any of our events and activities in the past 3 years, then we really welcome everybody's feedback on your engagement so that we can better understand the project's impact. So everyone has an opportunity to feedback from their experience and engagement with the project to date. So, please respond to that, and thanks.
Thanks, Elena. Yeah, that's great. You'll see the link in the chat. While we've just got 2 minutes, I'll just quickly draw attention. Thanks, Rochelle, for a couple of comments in the chat. One comment was that, I guess, alluding to the fact that a lot of the conversations that often happen are very sort of siloed. And so it's great to have the opportunity to bring them together and share learnings across the broader health space. So certainly that's been my experience of the Exchange, and probably my one big takeaway is its success in linking disconnected people. The other comment that was there was just noting that we've probably spoken to a lot of terms today around co-design and participation and engagement, and so maybe there is an ongoing piece for conversations here to help to provide some clarity about what different audiences or different groups mean when we talk about those terms, and what relevance that has to carer research. So that's something, maybe a little bit of homework for us to continue to work on. Any closing comments? Or if you feel like there's anything we didn't cover specifically with the panel that you want to use the opportunity to ask, there is an opportunity quickly to pop it into the chat.
Just quickly here, there's just a question from Kim Hudson. Would you recommend other states link in with Carer Knowledge Exchange as a national hub, or develop their own version of the model for state-based research?
Who'd like to answer that one?
I would say link into this so that, we're not then duplicating effort and work across the country. We do have, engagements with researchers in other states and territories and also internationally. So I would say to join in with us and with the Carer Knowledge Exchange, because it is really, it's about national information, national support for carers. We're leading it here with IPPG, and it makes sense to have it as one centralised point.
All right. I think Being 2:50, I might take the opportunity to say thank you to our panelists and to everyone who's stuck with us and joined us in today's afternoon session and across all this week's events so much.